Okay, so we'll start with just an introduction as to who you are.
Kia ora, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Te mihi tuatahi ki a Quenix, me tō whānau, mō tēnei o ngā kaupapa, mō ngā puhi ahau, no ngā te raukoa, no te aupauri. Kia ora, I'm Vicky James Stevens. I'm a mum of 7 and I'm pregnant with number 8. I'm a te reo Māori teacher. I'm a sister, a friend, a cousin, a mokopuna. I own my own business. Just putting that out there, real classes, call me. And yeah, and I live in Whangarei. I'm from Kaikohe. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah. And what makes you want to share your story on Let Me Speak campaign?
What prompted me to apply this year was, so it's 20 years since, and I'll get into that shortly. So for many years I didn't do anything on my any year anniversary for LPP, and then this year, because I'm a supporter on Better Living page, and I saw the post about the child loss, and I watched your journey with your Pepe this year, and but all that week I had forgotten it was even her week, and that it was her birthday that Sunday, and so I didn't even know, and then that post come up that you were going to do this campaign, and then like just other little things, and this whole big like 20 years, like what has happened in your life in 20 years, Vicky Jean. And all this stuff was coming up that week, and she was popping up, like I was meeting people with the same name as her and all this stuff. And then my cousin, that's with me here, Stace, she sent me the link. She was like, "Cuz, share your story." I was like, and I never told
all
anyone.
Signs.
Yeah, all these tohu were just happening all that week, and I had forgotten it was her birthday week. And then Stace sent it, and I actually just quietly didn't even tell my partner, and I just applied. I just went on. I was like, you know, what is there to lose? And then I saw it was only Hamilton, Christchurch, Wellies, and I'm like up in Kaikwe at this point, and I'm like, it's all good. I'll just ask if I can come down, or if they're coming north. And yeah, and then my cousin sent it to me, and it was like, hey, and then like lots of people were like, thanks man, share your story. And then yeah, and then so I applied like on the delos, and then my cousin sent it. She's like, hey, have you heard anything? You know, and then. Yeah, and then I messaged Stanley, and I'm like, hey, did you get my application? Just checking, because I didn't know if I filled it out, and then you might have not got it, because I got it online. And anyway, she's like, yes, we were just sending it out to everybody you're in, and so I still didn't tell anyone. And then yeah, and then it was like that Friday, and then her birthday was on the Sunday. And so I said to my Tani, I said, oh, because I never go up, I don't, you know, I don't prompt everyone to go. He goes with the kids, and I don't go often. And I said, oh, can we go up and see babies? Like, yeah. So we went up, and then yeah, it just was her week, and she was making sure that I knew and remembered it was her week. So we went up and we spent the day up there with our other kids, and yeah,
cool.
Yeah, so it was just timing.
Yeah, hard out. And where does your journey with child loss begin?
So it began in 9/11 2001 was when I met my Tani. It began 20 years ago. So 2001 I was 18, and I had no reo, no kauai, had no anything. Never knew my reo, never knew me, 18-year-old girl in Kaikohe. And yeah, and I'd finished school, and I met my Tani. And we didn't know each other, like we met a couple of times. And then I got hapu, and and my family's quite open, so they were like, if you fellas have babies, because I'm the oldest of my whānau, and it was encouraged, like my nan and my mum never were like, babies young or whatever. Yeah, they were just open. So I told my mum, and because I'm the eldest moko on my girls on my dad's side, one of the eldest on my mum's side, of like 40, 50 mokopuna, and eldest daughter and all of this. So our baby was, mum and my dad's first moko and stuff like that. And anyway, so got hapu, didn't really know my tane, he's here, he's over there. So yeah, we didn't really know each other, but he was sweet, he was like, yeah, keen on him, he didn't have any children, so he was keen. And then anyway, so we just went with it. I had finished school and I was working at the kohanga, so my nana's a kaiako and so is my mum, and so I like kids, nice easy job, didn't have the reo, could go and learn the reo, so I started working at kohanga. And so I was pregnant, going to kohanga, and then I got to, so we had a stillbirth daughter at 24 weeks, so quite a fair bit on, and but in the week leading up, so everything was going good, like I was healthy, everything was going good, I was working, and but then a week before, like I think it was the beginning of the week, I had some spotting, and then because we were living in Kaikohe and my mum was living at her place, and so I rang mum and I said, oh, there's some bit of bleeding, but it was only a little bit, so I thought it was okay. And then anyway, so I rang, mum said, ring the midwife. I rang the midwife, because my midwife, so I'd chosen this this older lady, because she was my best friend's midwife. She was hapu at the time, and my favourite, my main cousin was hapu at the time, so we all had, we were all hapu, and so we all had the same midwife in Kaikohe, older lady, and she had birthed loads of babies, and so that's why I chose her. And and the other thing I forgot to mention, so I'm a student, I'm doing a Bachelor of Health Science to become a midwife.
Wow.
Now, at the moment. Yeah. And anyway, so, because that's part of the story. And then, anyway, so I rang my midwife and I said, oh, I've had some bleeding, because we didn't know, I'm 18 mum's first moko. Just thinking, oh, yeah. So I had some spotting, and then she said, oh, that happens. We'll book you in at Kirikiri to have a scan. So that was Monday. Wednesday I had a scan in Kirikiri, and they just said, oh no, baby.
Could you feel baby moving?
Yeah, baby had just started, because we had my cousin who's here, Stace, we had her brother's 21st at the end of January of 2002, and and I got one photo of me with a little puku, like I just started showing. So she was starting to kick, but I was the only one. So my tiny didn't feel any kicks, only I did. And and so anyway, Wednesday came and we had the scan at Kirikiri, and baby was all good. They couldn't see where the bleeding was coming from, and it wasn't coming from baby, and the placenta looked all good. And so they just sent me home, and then that was Wednesday, and then Thursday I went to kohanga, went to work, and then when I was at kohanga on Thursday, I was like just walking around like I was at full term, like like I was like holding on to walls, and I was like, and then my mum noticed, and
were you in pain or?
Yeah, because I was like just like feeling like I had to like go like that, and then mum spotted me, because I'm just thinking, dramatic, so I'm thinking, oh, here I go, Vicky Jean. So I was just sort of like just pacing myself around the building, and my mum said, Bub, because that's my name, so she said, Bub, are you all good? And I said, just a little sore, like it just feels out of it. And then mum said, got me to sit down, and because there was no bleeding. Anyway, so mum got me to sit down, and then the rest of the day I just was just sore. And then this is like after lunch, because I was the kitchen hand and the cleaner, because I couldn't speak, so I wasn't there with the kids. And mum just said, go and sit down, and then I was still sore, like after morning tea. And then mum said, nah, go home. And because my partner was at work, And Mum said, go home, have a bath, and then when I finish work, I'll come over. And I was like, oh yeah. And then I think my auntie dropped me off at home. And then I went home. Had a shower. And I set my bed up in the lounge and I put my jammies on and I thought, oh, I'll just watch movies, have a relax, no bleeding, like nothing, like how even the spotting, there was nothing. And I thought I'd wait for Mum to come. We waited. Mum came back from work like 4 and I had a bit more bleeding. And I was, just rang my midwife and then the midwife said, she just said to me, put a pad on and I'll book you in at Kawakawa Hospital in the morning at 11 o'clock and we'll check what baby's doing. And she said, is baby still moving? And I said, yeah. And so she just said, put a pad on, and just monitor the blood. And she asked me how much blood it was. And because I've always been like a heavy bleeder, so I thought, well, it's blood, but it's not heavy, like my period's heavier than this, but it was more than the spotting. Anyway, so Mum was there, and then my partner got back from work, and then Mum, they just said, well, just stay home, just keep changing the pads and stuff if you need to, and because at that time we were living in a 2-story house, and our bathroom was getting renovated. And anyway, so then Mum, we all slept in the lounge, and my Tanya's there, my Mum's there, and we went to sleep, and then because I was like having tender, like it felt sore, but not like, I'm sort of got a high pain tolerance though, so I was like, not sore, but it's sore. And so I just went through that. Mum and my partner were asleep, and then it was about, must have been about 1 in the morning, and I woke up because my whole top was wet, and I was leaking, and I didn't tell anyone. I went to get changed, so I just went in the room, changed my top, but I was like leaking like milk, and I went, changed my pyjamas, hopped back in bed, and because we had to go downstairs to go to the toilet, and we had the toilet. Anyway, didn't tell Mum and my partner, hopped in bed, went back to sleep, and then, because we had to go to Kawakawa at 11 in the morning, that's all I knew. Mum had to go at 7 to change cars, and then I must have got up again about 4. And I was like, oh, I need to go to the toilet. So I just snuck out of bed between those two, went downstairs on my own, and because all the lights were off, and I felt wet, but I thought, like sweating, So I went down, didn't turn any lights on, just walked all the way down through the garage to this other toilet we had downstairs, and it wasn't until I got into the bathroom, the actual toilet block, that I turned the light on, to like, just because I knew my way down there, went downstairs, and I turned the light. I was downstairs. So my pajamas were soaked, and I think, thinking back now, I think I must have went because there was so much blood. Because then I just stood there for ages, and I was like, because I couldn't tell, they were upstairs, they were way away, and it was just blood everywhere. So I just took my pants and my underpants off, and I just wrapped a towel, I think, and then I just left those clothes there. I don't know, someone must have cleaned them up, but I left them there, and then probably twig, went to make my way back upstairs, and I got through the garage. We had to come out the garage through this side door, got to the bottom of the stairs, I couldn't walk, because it was too small, and I couldn't call out to them because they were asleep. And so I crawled up there. I don't know how long it took me to get upstairs. And my mum had left, so it must have been hours, because she had gone, like she must have just thought, oh, she's gone to toilet. She had to go swap cars so we could go kawa on a better car than the car we had. So, because when I got up to the top of the stairs, like we had a hallway and the lounge was there, and I was like crawling because it was sore. And I was like, Mum, calling up to my partner. And Mum had left. She must have just thought, oh yeah, Mum's doing that, I'll quickly swap these cars, come back, we'll go straight to the hospital. So when I got into the lounge, I'm like, yelling out to him. By that point, he woke up and he's like, what the hell, And then I don't, the rest sort of just went. Like, I remember Mum must have came back, and then because we lived up the whole story house, so he like must have carried me down the ramp, and I remember getting put in the back of the car Mum came back on, and there's just blood, loads of blood on my legs. I remember seeing blood on my legs, blood on the towel, blood everywhere, and he's in the back with me, and I was spewing up. So I was spewing like bile, like it just felt like dry wrenching or spewing, and I was like, I don't know what that was doing. And if you know Kaikwe, it's easier for you to jump in your car and shoot yourself to the hospital than it is to ring the ambulance and wait around for that. So Mum drove, and then that's like 20 minutes away, so we went to Kawa, and I rang, my partner had rung my midwife, and we got to Kawa, and she lived closer than us, and this is why this part's important, and why I'm going to be a midwife now, is we got to Kawa, she wasn't there, and that was a stink buzz, and then anyway, the nurse that was there was horrible. We had the same old nurse that I ended up having with two of my other kids, and she just like, just comes out like, Mum and them are trying to carry me in, looking for wheelchairs, like saying, this is what's happening, there's blood everywhere. And she's just like, so what's happening? My mum's crying, my partner's crying, I'm spewing up, crying, bleeding, scared, and I'm saying, it's too small, baby's too small, like this is too small, I don't know what, why are we here? And she's just there with these orange pills, these like steroids or something, and she's just standing there, she's like, well, you need to take these, we're going to put you on an
no empathy or compassion,
nothing. And I remember this lady, like, she's not working anymore, she must be retired, but I seen her again twice with two of my other kids, and I just remember her giving me these, and that's why I remember them, because they're these little orange pills, and like to stop the labour, and I'm like, the labour ain't stopped, like I know it's all, I actually knew that my daughter was gone already, like I felt, because there was no more kicking, I just knew, and that's what I was saying to everybody. I said, she's too little, I didn't know she was a she, I was just saying, the baby's too little. Anyway, she just done that, and then we got put in an ambulance to go to Whangarei, and I don't remember that, I just remember sirens, roadworks.
Oh my God.
So I'm like looking out the window and I can see roadworks, and we're stopped and sirens are going, and because I must have been just losing lots of blood when the sirens were going. Anyway, so they got me to Whangarei. Got to Whangarei, my midwife rolls up. She rolls up, and there was heaps of people in the room. That's what, like Leo, like that. I look back, there was I don't recall any, like, asking me, or like even any cultural acknowledgement, that we're Māori, and they weren't checking to see it, like, you know, if I wanted all these people. Like,
Yeah.
there was, you know, male doctors, there was other midwives, there was my midwife doing nothing.
Probably in training.
Yeah,
and
you know,
fucking-
medical students, and I just know there was heaps, and the room was bright, and I'm like looking around, and I'm just saying, the baby's too small, like, you know, baby's too small, and then yeah, so there's all these people, and then my midwife, she stayed there for a little while. And then she came up to me like during it, because I remember doing some examinations, you know, like the male doctor put his hand all up there, like, you know, I was just like, what? And there was no one, because my mum's crying and praying, my partner's like crying, and we don't, you know, we don't know what's happening, and then they just poking me and check, you know, like they weren't even like, I don't remember getting talked to, like, you know, we're just going to see where the baby is.
So there wasn't any one person in charge?
No, my midwife was not talking for us, you know. And then, so it's like in and out, like I remember bits and then people's faces and then, you know, talking to me.
Yeah.
And then I remember my midwife, and this is why I'm going to be a lot better midwife than that, is she came right up to my face, you know, like she's talking to me, and I remember her face right here, and she goes, I've got to go. And I was like, what? You know? And because baby's 24 weeks by this time, I'm a real vigilant person. So as soon as I had that pregnancy test, I was down the clinic getting a midwife.
Yeah.
With my cousin's midwife, my best friend's midwife. You know, I'm like that person. I'm going to every appointment. I'm doing my bloods early. And she like knew me for at least 20 weeks of my life. And she goes, I've got to go. I'm going to hand you over to Hamana. Like, I don't even remember the lady she handed me over to. She was a big Pākehā, so my midwife was Fijian, and the lady she handed me over to was this big Pākehā lady. Like, that's what I remember, but she was beautiful. I just remember her standing there. She's on this side, and my midwife's like gapping it already. Well, she's telling me she's walking backwards, you know. She's just like ready to cruise to something else. And I looked at her and I was like, what? And she goes, I'm going to hand you over to some lady. I don't even know that lady's name till now. And yet she was amazing. She was really beautiful, this other midwife. I think she actually still probably works at Whangara because I've seen her. Like, I think it's the lady. And I remember that lady. She was beautiful. And she just looked at me and she goes, and she goes, goodbye, whatever that, I don't want to say the lady's name. The midwife. Yeah, and then so she goes, goodbye, blah blah. That's what she said, and I could feel it. I knew that one was just like this chick. Yeah. And then so she just said to me, like, she just looked at me like with full heart, and she was just like, oh good, you know, you're all right. And then she coached me through, because with a stillbirth, at that gestation, they're considered a human, you know, because they're over 24 weeks or 23 weeks. And so so there's that, and then so she coached me through, and she said, I'm really sorry, but you have to birth this baby, you know. And I'm like, what do you mean birth the baby, you know, because I'm still waiting, like first baby, like what does this mean? And so I had to push out my baby, went through all the same contractions like labour, and but the most difficult part with a stillbirth is they're not doing anything. You know, they're not wriggling, they're little, so they're not helping you. She was my first, so I didn't know my body. No, number 8 now, I know my body. But, you know, so I didn't know where she was in my body. Like, they're telling you to push here and push, you know, I'm like, push where? I didn't know what, you know, to push. I didn't, and the contractions are there, but you're just pushing what, you know, like I didn't know what was happening. And then that male doctor kept putting his hand in there for Jack, you know, and just ugly stuff like that. But she was beautiful. And then so I don't remember all of it. I just remember that when she came out, she was beautiful. But when she came out, she flew out because she's so little and you're pushing. And I was just sharing with my mate last night when I was preparing for the kōrero was one thing that's never left me is a sound. Like, because they just come out. She just flew out, like, I'm serious. It looked like she might have flown off the bed nearly. I just pushed her, and she just went, and it was like, and you just feel this little, you know, like when something falls on something.
Yeah.
And I, you know, that sound just, I just know that sound, you know, when something drops. Yeah, so she did that, and because I'm on my back, you know, knees up, and she just flew out, like maybe about half a meter in front of me, and she's on her stomach, and she just flew out, and she's like just made that little on the sheet of the bed, and I'll never forget that. But she was perfect. She had everything, like all her limbs. She was pink and a little bit see-through because she's only 24 weeks. She was hairy as anything. She had hairy shoulders, hairy neck, hair on her head. But we didn't know she was a girl then. You know, she was on her puku. And she lay there for, like, you know, no one moved for a little bit. There was, I don't know if it did happen. I just imagine that nothing moved. No one moved. And then, then they grabbed her, and it was that big Pākehā lady. She grabbed her, that midwife, and then they gave her to us. And then, but she was beautiful. She had sideburns. You know, she was hairy as, and she looks exactly like her father, like all over. You know, like just his imprint. It didn't look nothing like me. She had fingers, hands, you know, because you don't know what they're going to come out looking like, if they're going to be something wrong. But nah, she had a little round head, arms, hands, you know, like everything, every little thing she had. And then, but then I don't remember, like all the other little bits. Like I remember them giving her to me. They were beautiful in whangarei though. At that time, because this is 2000. That's where I
had my first.
Oh yeah.
In whangarei.
At that time they had a little old Pākehā lady who I don't know if she may have had a little stillbirth baby or small baby, but she used to sew little tiny little booties, little hats, and so they got us a little basket with a little pillow. They got us to pick out. We got to pick out of all these little clothes. Like a little hat, little booties, a little dress, a little nappy. You know, like just those were really beautiful things. But see, because I'm the eldest of my family and it happened in the daytime, my siblings were all at school. And so I don't remember. Like, I just know she given to me, all of a sudden she's dressed, or, you know, next to me my whole family was there. My nan, my granddad, my aunties, my uncles, my cousins, all my siblings had all been picked up from school. And we were in the kōwhai room, in the old maternity at whangarei, and I only remember that because my second son was born in the kōwhai room. But we were in the kōwhai room, and my whole whānau was there. My best friends were there, and that was the same thing. Like I listened to one of the other speakers around, you know, those who have babies that come, you know, and they messaged me. They were texting like, you know, because they had their babies still on the titty. They were a couple of weeks old. They were all hapu at the same time, and they were like, can we come in, and, you know, we've got baby, those are all good. And I was like, yeah, of course.
How was that, being so young, and then, because it was all traumatic as fuck, but then being around other babies?
I was alright actually, because one of them's my namesake, and then I named my daughter after her mum, but it was like on that day, I think I was numb by that, because I remember like everyone there, like my room was packed with all my whānau, and we got our baby in a basket, and I know that I just sat there though, because even in the photos, because there's different photos of us, my nan was there, and you know, people were taking photos of us with baby, and I know that I wasn't there, so I think I just was like, you know, smiling away, like I don't know, but I know that in the photos I'm just like that. Yeah, I'm just there.
Like physically present, but fucking
not
far away.
Yeah, and so I think, and because they were my babies, you know, like it's my best mate's baby, that's my cousin's baby, it's my namesake, you know, like, so I felt sick when they texted me and said, oh, you know, we're outside the hospital, shall I bring baby in or shall I leave baby outside with the dad, or, you know, and I was like, nah, of course, you know, that's my baby, bring him in, you know, all that, and then, but yeah, I just sort of numbed it, like, you know, I just sort of did it. I didn't hold them though, that's the other thing I noticed, like I was like, yeah, bring them in, but I didn't do anything with them, I just had to with my baby, you know.
I think people want to ask, did you put in a complaint against that midwife? Nah,
I've never put in a complaint against her. Yeah, and I was just told that the other week when I shared with my whānau that I was going to share my kōrero.
Yeah.
They said, you can still complain, you know, 20 years on, you can put a complaint in. And I don't know, like I think maybe my upbringing or, you know, or like a sort of belief in karma, you know, like I just have never been a person to go back with an attack.
Yeah. And
so, like, for me, with the last 20 years, because I've wanted to be a midwife since then, but I only got the guts up to apply last year. You know, and that's why, like, with this 20 years, that's how that week was so, you know, prevalent for me, because I just had made these choices. I just started the course, you know, and it was just like, that's my way of twisting it. If I can get into the system, and you know, because I have the reo now, I have all this tikanga knowledge and Māori birthing practices and karanga and all these other elements I have now, that's what I can bring to midwifery, you know, for me, for Aotearoa New Zealand, because as we've been hearing all the kōrero over the last week, you know, the interviews I've already done, and I was talking to my mate on the way over here, and it's like, it's happening everywhere, you know, everywhere in the world, but New Zealand wide, it's not just a problem that's happening in Te Tautokero, it's not just happening in Auckland or Waikato Hospital. You know, one, midwives are so short, we don't have many, and we had lots leave with the mandate, but we don't take care of them either, you know, we don't train them well, like in Māori practices or in just anything, like cultural, like empathy for a person, a human being, you know, so yeah, I never went through the complaint thing, like it was just told to me last week, but I don't know, I might one day, but you know, like I don't even tell people her name, like even for me to say that she was Fijian, everyone didn't quite get her name, which one was, because she's only, you know, we'd have Pākehā Fijian Māori, or, so everyone will know who she is, but I've never really like run her down, or I have a lot against her for how she, her treatment on me, and it gets worse afterwards, but yeah, I've never done it, and I just thought I'd be better than that. Yeah. You wait till I get back to who I'm gonna be, a way better midwife than that.
Hey, I wanted to ask, you know, after baby, how was it then getting pregnant again?
Easy. Nah, wasn't. We didn't get. We did have our next baby. He's
easy.
So we've got a son after her. But yeah, for the first 2 years, he's 2 years after her, so he's born at the end of 2004. We got but like it was because I never had been on contraceptive, like our family not really into it. Yeah. So when I got pregnant with my first girl, you know, it was just like gonna happen. Obviously, it was not on any contraceptive. But after her, I wanted to be on something because I didn't want to get papu, so I went on the pill, and then I went on the injection because I just was like, nah, I don't want to have a baby. And so that went on for a couple of years. I stayed on just nothing, and then I don't know why I got to a point like keen now, you know, I don't know. And then so I just stopped taking my contraception, and that's what I mean, easy. We got pregnant. This fella's a hard case. Honestly, everyone just look at him, you're a pregnant girl. But so we got, he's like, oh, he's walking out now. But like as soon as I went off the pill and that, we got pregnant like instantly. But then when I got pregnant, that's when it hit. Yeah. Like, that was what I was like, far out, now you're pregnant. You know, now what? Like, you know, you thought it was all gravy, but like now you're pregnant. Yeah. And so it was like, I was diligent again. I had a different midwife, fully swiped that one.
What was that like coming up to that same
to get a midwife.
Like around the 24 week.
Oh yeah, so my son was born we went into labour early with him too. So we didn't have any bleeding, and not as early.
Yeah.
So when we got past the 20 weeks, it was terrifying all the way through.
Yeah,
because like people say wait for 3 months and then you're on the safe zone. It was like no, we're waiting every minute to get when babies born. And so when we were coming up to the 20, it was like, and like checking, like any little bit of like sweat. I'm like, was it blood? It was all that.
Even just having a piss and checking
your
undies,
you're just checking all the time.
Scary.
Like, is there a little bit of pink? Is it, but I had no bleeding or anything with him. And then we got up past the 24-weeker, but we just sort of all, like, we didn't really, it was different, like with our daughter, her name's Eliza Denise. She's named after my mum's only sister and my cousin, Denise, who named her baby Mackenzie Vicky G. And and so we got but we weren't celebrating as much, I noticed, with boy, like with Leawaki, we're just taking it easy, like we were a lot more quieter about it, we weren't like, but my partner was coming to.
I think that it's like holding your breath. Yeah,
because we were just not making a big thing, you know, not sharing a lot with everyone, like when we started showing or when we started, we just kept it between us two, really. And like started showing but not telling one, like feel the kicks, but we just kept it between us, like we didn't want. We just sort of kept it. We just didn't celebrate him as much because we were like waiting, like you don't want to get all excited and then it's another sad, stink one. And then then we got past the 24 weeks and it was like, then we got past the 30 weeks, and then at 32 weeks, my partner was away from home that day. My mum wasn't with me, and I woke up because he had gone to work or somewhere early in the morning, and I woke up and my whole bed was wet. I was like 32 and a half or something, and I woke up and my whole bed was just wet, and I was like, oh, checked. I was like, it's not, I didn't mimic myself, but it was just clear water. And then but see, that's me. Don't tell anyone because I'm like, oh, and then there's no bleeding, so it just might be something that happens, cause, and I think I don't want to tell anyone in case we're going that way again. Like, let's just pretend it didn't happen. So I got up, changed the bed, put stuff on, had a shower, climbed back into bed, didn't tell my tummy. Oh, and my mum that's where she was flying back from Perth at the time. That very day. She was supposed to come 2 weeks later, but she just changed her flight and she was coming to Kirikiri, So I was supposed to go pick her up and she flew into Kirikiri. So bed's wet, changed it, hop back in bed, all good, nobody knows. It was like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, then again. I just hop back in bed, thought I'll just go to sleep, go to sleep, it's all good. Wet, like just this clear fluid, wet, like a big huge wet. And then I was like, this is getting a bit hard to hide, so then I got back up, changed it around, and I thought, I better ring my Tani. I don't want to ring anyone else, didn't ring the midwife. I rang him, and he was on the road in Auckland, I think, at the time, and I rang him and I said, mahi, and then I rang him and I said, hey, I got no blood, I'm all good, no pains, but water, like just water, like this clear water. And he was like, ring the midwife, what are you ringing me for? Ring the midwife, where's your mum? Because you got to go to Kirikiri and get her. And I'm like, if I'm in the midwife, they're going to make it like a big deal, and then I'm going to have to go to Kawakawa. And he's like, man, I'm in Auckland, I got to drive back up to Kaikoui, which is 3 hours or whatever away. And then, and so he's like, ring the midwife. So I rang the midwife, and I had an awesome midwife. She ended up being the midwife for our next 4 kids. And then, she's amazing, and Pākehā lady, and then so I ring her, and she's like, get to the hospital, ring your man, I'll meet you at Kawakawa, she's just like, why haven't you, when did this happen? I was like, 2. She's like, she's like, that, we need to be on with you. And so I got a growling, and then rang my cousin or my brother to go pick mum up, and I better make my way to Kawakawa. So I got to Kawakawa, my midwife's waiting for me there, the same lady with the little orange pills was there. She was still horrific, you know, still, because but then, and then my brother must be my brother, grabbed mum from Kirikiri, came straight to Kawakawa. And then, I don't know how he magically came. He ended up meeting us in Kawakawa, my partner. And then, and that same lady, because mum's crying. Oh, no, my sister. So mum's crying, my sister's crying, I'm crying. He rolls up, you know, and that same lady had the same attitude. Old Pākehā lady. She just was like, what are you, you know, like she didn't remember us from 2 years ago, you know. Anyway, so she was real stink, welcome in the A&E. And then my midwife's just like, you know, you got to take these and blah, 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 and talking for us and talking to her, because I was like, that's the lady from last time. And yeah, but she was like, ugh, you know, because we were all crying hard out, and then mum just turned around to and said, hey, we've already been here before, we're scared. Okay, so don't be looking at us like we're all dramatic. We were crying, like wailing, like, oh no, what's happening? So I got ambulance again to Whangarei. Ended up in the same room.
Oh,
and
no.
and then, but I didn't have him, so I stayed in Whangarei Hospital for 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks on bed rest. Wasn't allowed to leave my bed, leave the room, and I have. So what they found out after baby. So when we had her, they found out that I forgot what it's called, some big name, but I have like a weak placenta lining.
Oh.
So what had happened with our daughter, we didn't have a post-mortem or anything. They offered it, and we said, oh, okay, what does that mean? And they would have to, I don't know if they still do it now, but they would have to send her to Wellington on a helicopter by herself. No one's allowed to go with them. And they go down there and get their post-mortem. And we were like, nah, our baby ain't going nowhere with nobody. And, you know, cutting her open or doing tutuing or whatever you used to do. So no, and we just opted to not know, you know, like what's going to change if we know. But yeah, so I have a weak placenta lining, and so that had come away before her.
Oh.
Yeah, so her little whare's, you know, just dwindling away, and that was what was happening with him. So with him, I have ruptured waters.
Yeah.
So that's why it was just clear water. All my waters was just draining out. Yeah, but no blood. So that went on for 2 weeks before I actually went into proper labour and had him.
And he come out all
They
good?
came out all good, yeah. They took us to Skaboo and they showed us what could happen, you know, because he was born, he would have been 33 weeks then. And in Whangarei you can only be up there at 33 weeks, so otherwise you got to go to Auckland. But he ended up staying in for 2 weeks, so he was born at 35 weeks. He was 6 pound flat. He was the biggest in our room, like all his metes were like 3.5 pound, 4 pound, with all the same gestation. Heaps of mamas were there, all similar, you know, like similar things, and we all had our babies within that week together. Yeah, he was all good. He didn't even have oxygen. He stayed in Skaboo for a few days, like maybe 3 or 4 days, and then we got transferred to Kawakawa, stayed there for another 3 or 4 days. He had a feeding tube. But no, nothing else.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
and he's nearly 18 now. Thinking he's a big guy. Yeah. Yeah, but he's good. And then, but each of our kids have gotten further and further. So with our 7th, so we've got our daughter 20, our son 18, nearly 18, nearly 16, nearly 15, and nearly 13, and then we had a huge gap, and we've got a 3 and a 1. And then this one, and so everyone has just gotten a little bit over. So all of our kids have been born between 35 and 37. Yeah, none of my kids go past. One went 37 in 1 day or something.
Go to full term.
Yeah, none of them go full term. Yeah, had bleeding with the last. Yeah, our 1-year-old. But he's healthy. He's healthy and busy. Yeah. But yeah, so we've got 5 boys and 2 girls. So our daughter, that's Levine, she's nearly 15, yeah. And so she's in the middle, you know. So that was big too, to finally have it when we had her. Yeah, she's our little girl this side, with her 5 brothers. And we don't know what this baby is. Because I'm 30, what am I, 32 weeks?
Any plans for more after?
He once hit double digits.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I always wanted 13, and he always wanted 8. That's his favourite number. So he's like, I've got my 8, but double digits, 10's all good. Yeah.
Alright.
So yeah, that might be on the cards. One of the things that I was like when I've been preparing for the kōrero that I wanted to share is that like for us, for me anyway, like it has as I shared at the beginning, 20 years ago at no real know anything, no knowledge of tikanga, like, but our whānau are all Māori. My parents are both Māori, and he's Niuean, he's not Māori.
Yeah.
Don't hold it against you. But yeah, so we, that was the beauty for me. Like when we had baby, even though I don't remember all the hospital stuff afterwards, but I remember all my whānau. We had my nan and my granddad, we had everyone there, and then we travelled back home because my nan and granddad live in Ngāwha, so we travelled back to Ngāwha and we had a 3-day tangi for her.
Man.
Like a full on, like we had hangi, we had, people come, manuhiri coming in and out, we had, guest visitors, everything, we had she was celebrated, and yet she never, like we did have the few whānau or relations or kaumata that said silly things like, because we named her, so that was like, she didn't breathe. She, up in our cemetery in Ngāwha at St. Michael's, there's a whole row of babies that are just baby whoever, like baby last name of the whānau, and so we had a few of that, had a few of those comments. But yeah, we had a full-on 3-day tangi, and it was my nan and my granddad that asked us to take, and she was the first person, or the first tūpapaku to lie in my grandparents' home, because we've had a couple others now, a baby and some older men, and our granddad. But yeah, she was the first one. She had the full-on, like, whole whare set up, big kitchen set up, the mihis, the karanga, the everything. And we had all that, so she was full on, like, celebrated. All her Niuean family came up from Auckland, everywhere, like, it was packed, like, her tangi was huge. We had all that, and I, for me, that's what saved me, our reo, our tikanga, our culture, my whānau, that's whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, all those principles we talk about as Māori, they were displayed in her farewell. Even on the last night, because I'm the eldest, all my siblings are younger than me at this stage, still at college and primary and stuff, and they were all encouraged on the last night. We all had a talk, like they all got up and talked, and this was a baby, no one felt her, only me. No one knew her, but they shared, oh, we're excited because Vic was going to have a baby, and we were going to be an uncle or auntie, or my baby was going to have a little cousin, like she was like fully celebrated, and yet she was only here for 24 weeks, and but that was amazing, that was cool, and because with the Niuean culture, they wrap their like babies, or I don't know if they do all people but I know for our baby, when my sister-in-laws and all came up from Auckland, my in-laws, they were like, we don't want her in the ground because she's going to get cold. So they came with huge, I'm talking big ass island mats, big ass blankets, like to wrap. Her little coffin was going in a cocoon of blankets, and I'm like, oh, Papatua, you're not really, on the rubbish side of things, but yeah, but they came with all these huge blankets, and like my mum's brothers who don't talk, they're like these Grim Reaper uncles, but my uncles crawled, so where she's buried, where she lays, is at the feet of my great-grandparents. So, because my grandfather was still alive then, he's a couple down from her now, but he asked, and he was not a talker, he wasn't even to Māori stuff, and he was like, he said to my partner and I, because we didn't know we had to bury her too, because we're thinking, little baby, we were like, man, shall we just put her under a tree at home, at the kainga, and doctors and that in Whangarei before we left said, no, she's over 24 weeks. So that's another thing you've got to go through. You've got to register the birth, register the death. You know, that's huge. So we've got those things. We've got these documents of a birth and a death certificate.
Mm.
You know, like, you've got to do all that. You've got to put them in a proper cemetery. You can't just, you know, like, she was a real, you know, she's considered under law as a person. So yeah, we did all that. She had the white coffin, so she moved from her little basket. We had to take her to the undertakers, get a proper coffin, and stuff like that. And yeah, but so my granddad didn't talk. He asked us to bury her at the feet of his parents. My uncles who don't talk, like, you just don't know if they, you know, love you or anything. But yeah, but they went up. They were the grave diggers. My mum's two brothers, and they dug down and under the concrete. So she wasn't on the footpath or anywhere. You know, all of those things, like, she, you know, and I really am grateful for that, because I feel, you know, I've had so many stories over the years of women who weren't allowed a name, weren't allowed a photo, weren't allowed a handprint, or we had handprints, footprints, Polaroids. Like, we're having like little, you know, little photo shoots, and my mum was like, "Put the baby back in the coffin now, guys," you know, like, we were young. And, you know, but we got to do all that with her, and you know, my uncles made it all important, and, you know, my in-laws, their aunties, baby's aunties and uncles, fully cocooned her. She was like so warm, so, because this whole hole was full of island mats and a big quilt, and my uncle crawled down at the tangi at the burial, and he crawled right in. We couldn't even see him but his feet, and because he had dug the hole so deep in to make, because he was like, nah, we don't want our moko, you know, people just walking over her on the footpath, you know, like, all that she had, she was valued, you know. So that was cool. That was really cool. Yeah, but yeah, so we had an amazing, beautiful tangi, and I'm grateful for my whānau, you know, for my grandparents, for my parents, my cousins, my mates. Like, her funeral was packed for a little tiny person. She was only tiny to bring that many people together. Yeah, it was amazing. It was really amazing. But yeah, that, you know, that was all amazing. But my thing, and I heard it in Julia's kōrero too, is it's the after, you know, like, no one tells you when you go through that, and this is why I want to get into midwifery, is that no one supports you once it's done. You know, this person, well, my midwife wasn't there on the time anyway, but, you know, like, once the baby's gone, like, they don't have the midwife doesn't stay around to still do the antenatal care.
Yeah.
You know, like, and because for me, like, because the baby that laid on in their gestation, my breast filled up, you know, because I'd already been leaking when she went, and then I had, like, my breast welled hair, like, filled up with milk on, like, the tangi day, on the burial day. You know, no one takes you through that. And because I didn't get a clean out or anything, I just birthed her. And then, so I carried on for, you know, this 5 or 6 weeks after, as you do when you birth any other baby, of, you know, you're still bleeding, you're still healing, but you have no one. You don't have a midwife come in to check on your puku to see, you know, if you've got clots, or if you just don't have anyone.
No aftercare.
Nah, and so that's been always one of my motivations, is that when I'm a midwife, like, I want to, I don't know if that goes into midwifery or what part of the health service it goes into, but, you know, there's a big gap of who looks after those who lose the children, and you still need care after. Like, luckily for my nana and my mum, we just had cabbage leaves, Panadol, you know, like, but that shouldn't, like, where does the care go? You know, so yeah, that's got to change. That's just ridiculous. Like, and especially with so many women going through it. Like, how do you just drop them because they don't have the baby anymore?
Yeah.
You know, like, I've even noticed with, you know, I'm not blaming midwives and it's the system or whatever, but it's like, even, you know, after a child is born, the focus actually just goes to the baby. You know, like, you're sort of checked over, you know, if you have a healthy baby, but it's like, oh, you know, you just go through it, but they actually really are about, which is good, but it's like, there should be still someone who's there for the mum. You know, for the mum, yeah, like, it just transfer. It just becomes about, you know, just the baby, and then if you lose the baby, then it becomes nothing because they got nothing to come and check on you for. You know, it's just like, wow. And then, yeah, so that's, yeah, we need to do something about that.
Hard
yeah.
out, get in there, make
yeah,
big
yeah,
changes.
yeah. Get that too, get on my assignments. Yeah, and then saying that, and the other motivating, you know, not to run this lady down completely, but, you know, I don't know if it was because she's not Māori or what, but, you know, not of our culture, or doesn't understand me, or she was old in the tooth. You know, because I never got to ask her. She came on day 6, so we buried baby day 3. She turned up at my house on day 6 with a bunch of flowers, saying, "Sorry, I just heard."
Oh my God.
You know, and I was just like, because I was home by myself. Everyone had, you know, everyone gone back to their lives. That's the other thing that happens. Everyone just goes life, goes back to work, goes back to school, wherever, and I was home by myself and I heard the knock, went to the door, and she was there. And I just, because I'm not a swearing person, but I just said, "Get the F off my step, get the F away from me."
Yeah.
What the F? Like, it was all the Fs.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Go away. Why are you here now? I've had my nan and my mum and my cousins and everyone else has been here for me.
Everyone but you.
But you. You left in the pivotal moment of my life. Go away." And I never seen her again. I never seen her ever in my life again.
I want to know what the fuck was more important at that fucking time.
And that's it. Like, how do you just go, "I've got to go"? After you first went there at the first hospital and you lived like around the corner, you know, it's just ridiculous. It's just like, you know, that's my thing. Because I've been sharing this since I've been doing my study, you know, at the tutorials and that. And it is an awkward thing. I was listening to Julia's one, you know, how people just sort of the taboo, the tapu, everything, people don't want to talk, you know, and I have recently, like back in the earlier days, I used to talk about my daughter all the time, you know, like you just go to a party, like, "I lost the baby," you know, so you're that doom and gloom person, but there was a lot of years that I stopped talking about her, so when when we started having our other kids, but with Reo Wānanga and with Tikanga and Wairua and all of that, she bloody just started turning out.
Yeah.
You know, like if I don't acknowledge her, like even when I do my Mickey's and that, now when I, you know, do my speeches and introduce myself, I always say now, I've got 7 kids and having an 8th kid. Because before I used to just say, "I just got 4 kids," or, you know, and I had 5. But I didn't want to say because then people go, "How old are your kids?" And then you tell them the age, they go, "What school does your daughter?" You know, "Oh, you've got an 18-year-old. What school does she go to?" "Oh, she don't go to school, she's dead." You know, like it's just awkward. And then, but now, only the last few years with the little babies, with our new little set, it was just like, nah, because if I didn't acknowledge her, I'll meet like a Eliza or a Denise or Elizabeth, like there'll just be all these women that turn up with her name, and I'm like, you know, all these people start telling me, "Oh, I had a stillbirth baby," you know, like, so she just turns up. So it's better just to, and I'm a lot better now that I acknowledge her. Yeah, I don't go through those moments, but if I don't, then she soon tells me about it. And reminds everyone, "I'm here, hello." But
Man.
I think that was mostly what I wanted to talk about.
Before we wrap it up, is there anything else you want to share?
I think that's everything. I wanted to this morning when I was preparing for today, I heard it's a song, a waiata, it's a karakia, so it's a prayer, it's a farewell song, so it's a tangi song from the north, from Te Kao, and but it's a song to send our loved ones back up to Te Reinga, up to the Cape, and off Spirits Bay and all that. Just send them well on their way with our love. I just want to sing that as a close, and not just for Eliza Denise, but for, you know, all the babies that you know, all the tamariki, all the children that have been shared over the last few days, the ones that will be shared, all of our loved ones who have passed. Just as a whakanoa, as to, you know, settle it for me, because I sort of thought I'm going to be okay after this, but I'm really grateful for my tautoko team. My tāne, my cousin, my mate, I know my sisters and other whānau are all online watching.
Yep.
But I know that I'll need this.
So
I thought I'll be all good, but I think I'm going to be a little bit not all good tonight, guys. But I'll be alright. But yeah, just mihi anō kia koe next. Koutou katoa and Leah for this opportunity to share, and grateful to my baby for her journey. That she's given me, you know, I'm like a fighter now for midwifery and for babies, and you know, and making that difference. And grateful to my tupuna, my ancestors, my grandmother, my mum, you know, for their teachings, and that we have our culture to strengthen us. Because I know that's what got me through, you know, having our children acknowledged, even if they didn't breathe, even if they were, no one saw them, they were just a, you know, a little tiny person, they were still a person that deserves to be acknowledged. Okay, so this worked good. Peki peki ake ke atu tō peki ngā atu ki te renga mā waira koe whai atu mā taku arohai hoki atu ahaki toru mā ka hore rawara koe tō moe ngā ku papahaui tō pera urunga ka tangi ahaue ka tangi ahaue.
beautiful. That's beautiful. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your journey with us all. God, that was beautiful. Alright, thank you so much, and we wish you the best with your baby and all your babies and the 5 more to come. Thank you.